How are you? Good morning. I'm your friend, educator, and mentor, Siddhi Bangard. Hope all of you are doing well. So, briefly about me, I have a cumulative experience of 3 years, and I did my engineering from BIT Mesra Ranchi, appeared in civil services, 4 mains, and an interview, qualified CAT and all the other MBA exams, and finally did my MBA in HR from XLRI Jamshedpur. Proceeding, uh, at our platform on Unacademy, you get daily live classes, you get live tests and quizzes, and with that, after every class, you get notes in the PDF format. These are the same notes that we used to teach you in the class, or maybe any other notes that we choose to upload. Usually, I give you the notes that I choose to teach in my class, which are very detailed. And we provide you with structured courses. That means all our courses are structured in line with the exam syllabus to help you prepare better for it. And with one subscription of Unacademy, which you will take for my science and technology class, you get access to all the more than 200 courses that we are running on our platform, covering everything from prelims to mains to the interviews, which includes all the recorded, live, and upcoming courses. With that, a lot of brilliant teachers are actually teaching with us at Unacademy, especially Mrunal is here. And we are covering all the courses that are important for prelims as well as mains, including answer writing, essay writing, and interview preparation. For a 1 year subscription to our platform, the price is very reasonable. It's approximately 44,000. And it further reduces to under 40,000. If you use my code SBUS, you get an additional 10% off. And for a 2 year subscription, especially for UPSC 2021 students, again, the price is very reasonable for a 2 year subscription. So that 1 year subscription actually cost you 32,000, less than even the 44,000 that was costing you before. And if you use the code SBUS, it costs you less than 58,000. So that means less than 29,000 per year, which is far, far lesser than the offline courses. With that, let's proceed for today. So India IR series, it's the part 3, influence of PMs on Indian foreign policy. For everybody, I will just do a quick recap of what we learned in the yesterday's class. All right, folks? The first thing that we did yesterday was 6 phases of our foreign policy. Basically, before that, we studied the objectives of our Indian foreign policy and the principles of our Indian foreign policy. Today, we will be discussing evolution of our foreign policy with our PMs. All right, and to better understand it, I will just briefly take you through what we did yesterday so that we understand today's session in a better manner. All right. So first we discussed the objectives of Indian foreign policy. We discussed that the primary objective, the main objective of India's foreign policy is to secure national interest. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Then the second thing is, the second most important point is we want to create an external conducive environment for our interest so that we can fulfill our interest on the international stage. So basically every point here, developing a proactive and pragmatic approach to the foreign policy, becoming an important global player, all of these actually point out to securing our national interest, engaging diaspora for Indian interest. The core of any foreign policy, whether it be India's or be America's or for any other country, is to secure its national interest on the international stage. How, and for us, the other four objectives being created conducive external environment, becoming important global player because we are not already there. We are an upcoming superpower and we are getting some say in the global forums. We have a lot of diaspora, almost 30 million diaspora working in different parts of the world. So that's an additional advantage for us. And we haven't missed them out of our foreign policy domination or domain. So this is an important part. And finally, as of now, after so many trials and tribulations, we have understood that there cannot be a consistent foreign policy, which will be the theme of the 6 phases of foreign policy, or even the evolution of our foreign policy, that it has to be very quick, it has to be very dynamic, you have to respond to the situations as they evolve. However, there will still be some basic principles over which India will never compromise. These will be the basic principles. That was our next topic, the fundamental principles of Indian foreign policy. The first one was Panchsheel, given by our beloved Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, because all were recently developed nations in 1947. So we wanted that the new Committee of Nations should do it better than what their international counterparts did before them. Stop warring and actually instead focus more on socio-economic development. The second one was Vasudev Kutumbakam, that the world is a one large family, which is written in Maha Upanishad, and that we believe that we should be cooperating at the international level and consider everybody as our family and see what we can do for others without expecting any reciprocation from others. Third, we will not be somebody who will go around and export our ideologies. We don't force our ideologies on other people or believe in regime changes just to force our ideologies. We are a people who believe in live and let live. We believe in peace and mutual respect. And we believe in the will of the other peoples to select the type of governance they want, because we also gave ourselves this constitution. So we believe that the other people are capable enough to determine what kind of governance they want. Fundamental principle 4 is India does not endorse unilateral sanctions or military sanctions. What does that mean? We do not go by the others if they say that we'll go and attack that country, because we don't believe in forming alliances. We believe in forming partnerships. So we will not unilaterally sanction somebody for something that they have done. We will respect all forms of governance. However, if there is a mandate by the United Nations or as a result of international consensus, India will not shy away from performing its role. Fundamental principle 5. Interference, but no, but intervention, yes. We don't interfere in others' affairs, but intervention, again. If somebody impinges on our national security interest, we will not back down. We will protect our interest vociferously, like we have been doing for a while now. In fact, even back in the days of Nehru, back in the days of Indira Gandhi, we have vociferously protected our interest. Otherwise, how could you have another Bangladesh? How could you have another complete nation made on your other side of the neighborhood when there was a hostile nation before? East Pakistan was before, and now you have Bangladesh, if you wouldn't have been that decisive, right? Fundamental principle 6, constructive engagement over aggression. That means we will always try to be friendlier. We will try to address things peacefully rather than going and attacking the opposite party, because we feel that even after war, the conflicting parties actually have to come to the negotiation table. So why not do it before? Because war is not beneficial. It is harmful to both the parties involved, especially to the citizenry, to the economy, and to the socio-economic development. Fundamental principle 7, strategic autonomy. It gained momentum in the 1991 to 1999 phase of Indian foreign policy, as we talked about it yesterday. So it meant partnerships, yes, we will form partnerships, but alliances, no. That was a time of a unipolar world, and we had to ensure that no superpower could actually push us around when it came to our foreign policy or our domestic policy. And again, we have always had the shield of non-alignment. We were the founding fathers of non-alignment, and we have used this principle whenever we want to separate ourselves from alliances, whenever we want to keep the interest of the third world parties on the international stage. Global consensus on issues of global dimensions. This is fundamental principle 8. Why is this important? Because we as Indians and we as a country have always believed in multilateralism. It actually stems from our belief in democracy. We feel that everybody should have a say for issues that are important to them. If there is an issue that is important to all of us, then the opinion of all of us should be there in decision making. If it is not there, it will breed resentment. All right. And resentment is never good for world harmony. It comes outside war. The two world wars or the other numerous wars that have been fought in the history is because the countries have had resentment over one another. So those resentments shouldn't be there. What is our idea of reducing that resentment? By having multilateralism, by having a global consensus. Finally, I will briefly go through the 6 phases of Indian foreign policy that we discussed yesterday, just so that it is easier for us to understand the second part of the lecture that we'll be doing today. With that, 1947 to 1962 was the first phase, era of optimistic non-alignment. We had just gained independence, and then we decided that let all the third world countries come together and present their opinions on the world stage. India was doing really well. Our leadership, Jawaharlal Nehru was very well known across the international fora. We saw energetic Indian diplomacy both in Korea and Vietnam and in Suez and Hungary. We thought that our position in the world has arrived. Also, it was the time of non-aligned movement. We had the Bandung and the Belgrade conference. But with the 1962 Chinese conflict, which we lost at, it actually broke our backbone. It broke our confidence badly. And from optimistic non-alignment, we went into some reality recovery check that, okay, the world at large is very different than we envisaged it to be. Morality might not always work in your favor. People might not be as moral as you think them to be. And you need to have some security built up in your borders. That fear of building our security is still there. It can still be seen on our borders. We are so panicky about our borders. And actually, not having a very, very friendlier neighborhood is not in. Not in a good spirit for the entire nation and for the entire Indian subcontinent, because not having a friendlier neighborhood makes you invest more in defense when nations like us could have spent that money on socio-economic development, right? We could have reached greater heights, but a large part of our economy actually goes in maintaining our forces, our security equipment. Not to say they are the sentinels of our borders, but just imagine if there was peace around the borders, what a country we would have been. So 1962 to 1971 was a period of realism and recovery. The highlight of this, we actually formulated a defense agreement with the US for our national security interest in 1964, and the peace treaty of Tashkent signed in 1965 by Lal Bahadur Shastri after the India-Pakistan War of 1965. Now, why was 1971 a watershed year in this phase? It was because the India-Pakistan War was again fought, and we had a new nation, Bangladesh, coming up on the map, which is a friendly nation towards us. So it marked the era of greater regional assertion. And by the end of 1991, we actually looked back at our basic principles of economic policy, domestic policy, and foreign policy. We completely refurbished it in connection with the economic crisis of 1991, when our foreign exchange reserves had completely depleted. We didn't have money to buy another week's oil to run our economy. With that, we went into the liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms in 1991. And we also started to safeguard our strategic autonomy. This was also the time when we declared ourselves to be a nuclear power, and we also won the Kargil War of 1999. So that's why these two things were very, very important. The Look East policy also came into formulation during the time of Narasimha Rao. It is still being carried out, and in the Modi government, it's known as Act East policy. In the 2000 and 2013 phase, 2000 is the watershed year again. Why? First of all, 2000 was the year when we actually also went to Russia. We signed a strategic partnership agreement with Russia. This was the time when India actually was going through a period of huge economic growth, which actually developed world's interest in our economy. Nobody wanted us to falter. We were the wheels, engines of the economy that was running the entire world economy. India and China were the two wheels of the international economy, especially during the 2008 crisis. And the way we used to run our economy actually taught the world that we were very, very savvy. We were very, very precautious, and we could run our economy in a much better way than they can. With that, in the 2005, we had the India-US nuclear deal, which was a landmark thing because it actually strengthened our credentials that we are a peace-loving nation and we can handle any technology, any warlike technology or any other technology for peaceful purposes in a very peaceful manner, in a very responsible manner. So that separated us both from China and Pakistan. China has always been considered an aggressor and Pakistan has always been considered to be irresponsible. But India came out to be very, very responsible, which actually led to our entry into the other three missile technology or technology control regimes, export control regimes, which are the MTCR, Missile Technology Control Regime, the Wassenaar Arrangement, and the Australia Group. All right. We will be doing a little bit about them in detail when I will be teaching you about international organizations. So don't fear, but go and look for all these in your as your homework, as a part of your homework. We have recently become the members of all these three regimes. The only regime, export regime of which we are not part of is the NSG or Nuclear Suppliers Group. We were just given a one-time waiver for the Nuclear Suppliers Group and we used it so well that now we are a part of three export regimes. With that, it was also a time of formulation of BRICS or the BRICS axis, which also led to the BRICS Bank. And finally, this time was actually efficiently utilized by India by the means of its economic power, by the means of its technological power, because 2000 was also the part of technology boom, not just in Americas but also in India. And right now, our IT industry is one of our strategic assets when it comes to knowledge. Then came the Modi government. After 10 years of UPA rule, came the Modi government. They completely shifted the focus of our foreign policy, which became neighborhood first. And that was when, in the swearing ceremony itself, our Prime Minister Modi invited all the SAARC leaders. And finally, the first country he visited after his swearing in was Nepal, and not any European power or Americas or Russia, which used to be happening of lately. Now, this was also the time when the entire world was withdrawing into protectionism and conservatism. So we took the mantle of maintaining a multipolar world, and China was actually becoming more and more highline. So it was becoming difficult to deal with China. And that's when we understood that we cannot have an agreement with every country over everything. We cannot be completely diversified into just two blocks, that either we are friends or either we are foes. We have to be somewhere in between, and that was understood the best in this phase. When we understood the world's expectations from us, when we also understood our expectations from the world, and we started leveraging our talent in global technology in a big way. Finally, we also became a shaper of the world issues. We were the ones who led the global key negotiations in the Paris Climate Exchange. And we also were, as I gave the example yesterday, we were also the one who founded the International Solar Alliance, whose headquarters are based out of Gurgaon. So we took that initiative in the renewable energy and we brought this important issue of climate change to the world focus. With that, let's proceed to our topic of today. I hope you have enough material to actually understand this part of the lecture, because this is very important and it could not have been completed if we didn't understand the objectives and the principles of foreign policy and how it has went through all the phases. Now, the PMs that we are going to address today, or we are going to read today, are those prime ministers who have greatly influenced our foreign policy. This is a timeline of the prime ministers that we have had during the whole tenure completed till now. So, starting with Jawaharlal Nehru, obviously, he is the founder of the modern Indian state, the father of our foreign policy. So, definitely, no foreign policy debate discussion is complete without mentioning him. We will be discussing about Lal Bahadur Shastri because the Tashkent Pact was signed during his time and he died mysteriously after that. Indira Gandhi, definitely, because that was the time of great regional assertion when we had the Bangladesh war. This was the time when we had recovered from optimistic non-alignment to realism and recovery. This was the time when we were optimistic, non-aligned. All right. Then almost similar policies followed in between. After Indira Gandhi, after 1984, 1984 to 1989, yes, we had Rajiv Gandhi, but that was a very, very short tenure. And we'll just consider the great regional assertion part also here when the IPKF or Indian peacekeeping forces went to Sri Lanka. All right. So that is that small thing that happened during the Rajiv Gandhi's time. All the other times it was coalition governments which lasted for very, very small time, including the one of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Now, but he was again a shaper, as limited as time as he might be in power, but he was in power for another 5 years between 2002, 2000 and 2004, 1999 and 2004. So during those times, this time and the other times that he formed a government which lasted only for 13 days, the smallest time our government has lasted, he made some very, very significant contributions to our foreign policy. We will see how. All right. This was a time of pragmatic approach. So he was present during both the phases. All right. The 1991 to 1999 phase of strategic autonomy, that term became famous during the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and also the time of 2000 to 2013. All right. This era is also marked by Atal Bihari Vajpayee, as we just discussed. That 2000 and 2013 was a time when India acted as a balancing power in the Asia Pacific. If you remember, if somebody has been following news since then, at that time US used to leverage us in the Asia Pacific against Chinese because Chinese power was rising, and India was the only other power that could actually counter Chinese size, Chinese economic dominance, Chinese social dominance in the international world. And that's when India and US came together very, very closely. In fact, that is one of the major reasons we could actually form the Indo-US deal. Have you observed that just in 1998, we were struggling with sanctions slapped on us by the US and all the other major countries relating to our nuclear test? And just right almost 6 or 7 years after, we are the ones who are signing a nuclear deal with the US, who in the first place slapped sanctions on that. So what happened in those 6, 7 years? We had a brilliant economic run, and China also had a brilliant economic run. That meant China tilted the balance of power in the Asia Pacific towards itself, taking away the focus from US. US wanted that focus back, so it actually included India as one of its strategic partners and said that basically it made India a balancing partner in the Asia Pacific and also its representative in the Asian Pacific to counter China's dominance there. So that is what happened during the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. We will also study about Indra Kumar Gujral. He was also during this time, the 1996 time, when he gave his famous Gujral Doctrine. We will understand what is the nuance of the Gujral Doctrine, why was it given. Finally, we had Manmohan Singh during the time of 2000 to 2013 when India was again acting as a balancing power. And it was him who actually signed the US nuclear deal. And Narendra Modi, which refers to the era of 2014 onwards, which refers to the era of energetic engagement. He has energetically engaged at the foreign level, at each and every level, whether it be at a country level, whether we at the multilateral fora, NAM, BRICS, IPSA, you call it, and our Prime Minister has been there. He has been engaging very, very energetically, and especially he brought the Indian diaspora to the fore. Some baby steps were taken in that direction by our Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. And in fact, the Indian Diaspora Divas is celebrated every year on January 9, the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, in light of Gandhi's return to India back in 1915, right? With that, let's proceed. So our first Prime Minister. I hope nobody has a query up till now. If there is, please let me know. Good morning, everyone. Yes, Amit, it was pivot to China. And thank you, Raj. Let's proceed. If nobody has a doubt, I'll proceed. Okay. Now, the first Prime Minister, and you will see I have not put the names of any of the prime ministers. I want you to recognize them just by their faces and the work that they have done, because they have done some phenomenal work when it comes to our external affairs, when it comes to our foreign policy. All right. Now, our beloved first prime minister, his timings were from 14th November 1889 to 27th May 1964. He died while being still a office bearer. He was the first prime minister of our country, a very, very big part of our freedom struggle, a very, very prominent personality of our freedom struggle. Whoever prepares for modern history cannot go without reading a chapter on him. There are so many chapters devoted to interactions between him and Mahatma Gandhi when you read about modern history and India's freedom struggle, especially the book by A.C. Chatterjee. No chapter goes without a mention of him. He is the father of modern Indian state, father of Indian technology. In the second 5 year plan, we actually focused, completely renewed our focus to developing our science and technology, and that was the time when most of the IITs were open. He got his education from Trinity College, Cambridge, and he's also a barrister or lawyer by profession. Completely devoted his life to his motherland since he was very, very young, back in 1927. Now, he rose to politics, or his rise in politics came in 1910s, and he became the president of Indian National Congress in 1929 when we gave the cry of Swaraj. That was when the first cry of Swaraj came out from the Indian National Congress. We also had the 1857 first war of Indian independence, and then the second time we actually talked about it was the Swaraj Declaration. He won elections back to back in 1952, 57, and 62. So, till the time he was there, Congress had a complete majority inside the country. So, why am I talking about this? Because whatever political party is running, its ideology actually runs not through just the domestic policy, but also through the foreign policy, and we'll see how. Our beloved Prime Minister, it is said, died somewhere because of the Chinese setback in 1962. It made him really, really conscious about our security arrangements, and we were the ones who went for non-aligned movement, but because of the Chinese setback in 1962, we ended up having a security arrangement, defense arrangement with the US in 1964. It was signed during his times. What were the major foreign policy developments? There were huge foreign policy developments, but I'm just listing out a few here. The London Declaration of 1950, it is related to our acceptance of the Commonwealth, our acceptance of being a part of the Commonwealth. At that point of time, the British actually wanted India to be a part of the Commonwealth because it was a jewel in its colonial states, and also because India was inspiring to a lot of other nations. So when we joined, a lot of other nations also ended up joining the Commonwealth. So it was during the London Declaration. Nehru could have said no to it because we had such a bloody past with the British, but he never believed in breaking up the relationships. He was one of those pioneers who, even after having so much of grudge against each other, when people just entered into hostilities, he could still maintain a very pleasant disposition and ensured that India could receive aid from any party it wanted to, and hence maintained his relations even with the British, even when they left. So that was the London Declaration for you. He took the Kashmir issue to the UN in 1947. So he said that if Pakistan agrees to withdraw its troops from Kashmir, we might go for a Kashmir plebiscite. Plebiscite means that people can vote either in favor to remain with India or to go with Pakistan. But in the past, if you've read history, we have seen that plebiscites actually haven't gone down with India, went down with India. We had to lose a chunk of our West Bengal territory to East Pakistan because of the plebiscite. All right, and there was a lot of bloodshed both at the West Bengal boundary and at the Punjab boundary because of those plebiscites. Because you cannot separate people from its culture. You can separate people on the basis of geography, but it is very difficult to separate people from their homegrown culture. In fact, you will see one of our prime ministers that we have covered here, I.K. Gujral, was actually born in Lahore, and similarly with Manmohan Singh. So you cannot separate them completely from their past or from the motherlands that they have grown up in, and that led to a lot of bloodshed. But we never had this plebiscite in UN because Pakistan never backed down with its troops. People say that it was a bad move to actually go to the UN for a plebiscite, but according to some other opinions, that is all what we could have done, because if we wouldn't have taken it to the UN, if you remember very clearly, USA and USSR, both the superpowers then, because it was a time when Nehru was there, it was a time of Cold War era. They never used to fight the wars on their own terrain. They used to go to some other region and fight their wars there. The Vietnam War, for instance, the Korean disturbances where we had to go and mediate. So wherever they used to fight a war, they never fought it inside their own territory. In fact, it has been the trend for all the colonial powers also. British never fought a war on their own territory back in London. They fought all the wars at the boundaries of India. All right, they fought in Myanmar. They fought at all the other places, China, Afghanistan, but never in their own country. And what did that do to those countries? It completely ravaged their economy and their socio-economic development. So when we took the Kashmir issue to the UN, we actually kind of safeguarded our interests there, right? However, it is said by some circles that when you take an issue to the UN, it no longer remains bilateral or between the two parties. It actually becomes a multilateral issue, and it is harmful because now everybody can come and intervene in your issue. So that is considered to be a mistake, but I consider it more to be in line what we could have done the best at that point of time when we didn't have enough firepower in us. With that, I would also like to mention Nehru's part, that what phase of the foreign policy it was, as I already told you, optimistic, non-alignment, or the first phase of Indian polity from 1947 to 1962. That is entirely his phase. Then he also established the Atomic Energy Commission of India and the National Defence Academy of India. Why have I put these points here? Because nuclear power and defense power are two very, very important arsenals in actually implementing your foreign policy. See, without any hard power to back your opinions, you actually cannot influence a lot of people on the international stage. And we realized that back early in 1940s, 1950s. In fact, when we talk about India's nuclear deal in 2005, India's defense policies, India's Defense Security Council, as I told you, National Security Council. All right. We talked about it in the very first lecture in the launching session, that National Security Council is an important policy maker when it comes to Indian foreign policy. So we had recognized the importance of defense way back during the time of Nehru when we had set up this. So the groundwork has been transitioning from one prime minister to another. All these prime ministers have contributed in their way to formulate the groundwork for the next prime minister when it came to Indian foreign policy. He was the giver of Panchsheel, no doubt about that. It was given in 1954 when we signed the trade treaty with Tibet. Non-aligned movement, 1955 in Bandung Conference. Korean mediation, I told about to you it yesterday that we went to Korea, mediated between North Korea and South Korea, the Korean Peninsula in 1953. Our role as a mediator was very well taken by the entire world. We were really praised for it. The Indus Water Treaty, we signed it under the pressure of the US and the USSR so we signed the treaty with Pakistan in 1960 under the pressure of both US and USSR. So even then, when we were not even a part of an alliance, they used to pressure us a lot. But we still went ahead with the Indus Water Treaty because we thought it was only fair of us to actually share the waters with our neighbor, because the five rivers also flowed through our neighbor Pakistan, and we had to share water because that is what is done internationally. So we had the Indus Water Treaty in 1960. The Goa occupation in 1961. So as much as the international community didn't like his using force in Goa to counter the Portuguese occupation of Goa and then finally going ahead and capturing Goa, India, he was domestically hailed as a hero because we tried our best not to actually use our forces there, but there was no other way left for us to actually reclaim our own Indian territory. In fact, the second security general went as far as saying that Nehru is a very, very genuine person. Whatever he did in Goa, there was no other way to do it. And Mao Zedong on the contrary, or Zhu Enlai, on the contrary, is very, very realpolitik. He only keeps doing the politics. He's not a genuine person. So if China or any other international powers are doing a hue and cry over our Goa occupation, it is not a right thing to do. It was suggested even by the second UN general of those times, because the United Nations has also just come into being in 1945. So the second UN general was running his term during the Goa occupancy. With that, let's come to our second prime minister. He is, you will be well recognizing him, Lal Bahadur Shastri. A very, do you know there's an interesting fact about them? He had a very short height. As much as glamorous our first prime minister was, Jawaharlal Nehru, educated from foreign universities, extremely well read, all right, extremely suave when it came to external affairs, international policy affairs, or any other affair that comes on the international stage. Our second prime minister was completely different from him. Not in the way of competency, but when it came to the way he was educated, his ideals, his principles, his way of living was completely different from Nehru. Nehru was more of aristocratic taste. He was more of a very common man taste. And Lal Bahadur Shastri's height was very, very small. But despite that small height, he had a towering persona, and we will read how he was a part of India's external affairs and what has he done for our country, what are his contributions. So he shares his birthday with Mahatma Gandhi, and he died mysteriously. He also died in office after the Tashkent Declaration. I will talk about it briefly. He was again a very important part of our freedom struggle. He became our second prime minister, and since he had a very, very towering personality, he was immediately accepted as the second prime minister. I will tell you why it is important. You know, Nehru had such a grand persona that everything else, everyone else got overshadowed by his persona. And internationally, people used to think that till Nehru is there, nothing would happen to the Indian polity, nothing would happen to the Indian nation state. But what after Nehru? This question was raging everywhere. And if you have read the NCRT as well, it is also that people said India has come to an end. There's nobody who can take care of India like Nehru. But when Lal Bahadur Shastri came in, nobody questioned him. We accepted him wholeheartedly. It was a very, very peaceful democratic transition from Nehru to Lal Bahadur Shastri, and that is why this transition is very, very important. Are you guys still with me? I really want to know if we are understanding everything. If there are any doubts, please feel free to ask. Please post it in the live chat. I will check the live chat and answer your queries, all right? He was also the one who pioneered the green and the white revolution. The green revolution regarding the high yielding varieties, and the white revolution regarding the milk. But they were further taken to their conclusion by our, again, very, very decisive Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. All right. Now, education, he actually dropped out of high school to join Indian politics and rose in the Indian politics in 1920s. He was also the president of Servants of India Society, which was founded by Lala Lajpat Rai. It's a very, very famous society. You must have read it when you would have done your reading your NCRTs. He was also a home minister and railways minister in Nehru's prime ministership, and he was the one who led India in the Indo-Pak War of 1965. And definitely we cannot challenge his leadership because he led us to victory, even those very, 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 very difficult times that we were facing just after Nehru's death. The whole nation was mourning. We were still to come to terms with the loss we just had, and then Pakistan attacked us, and we still came out with flying colors. Now, what is the Tashkent Declaration? Tashkent is the capital of Uzbekistan. So again, USSR, the UN and the US forced us to sign a peace treaty with Pakistan after the Indo-Pak War. We weren't very much interested in actually signing that peace treaty because that was again also a time when we could have taken back the Pakistan occupied Kashmir from that. That was one another moment that we had got. But we actually didn't do that. And we lost that moment completely. And Why is also Tashkent Declaration famous more than the peace treaty? Very few people actually know about the peace treaty. It is more famous because right after signing the treaty, he died back there in Tashkent only. And the circumstances in which he died are, people say he died out of cardiac arrest, but nobody actually clearly knows. And there's a lot of speculation regarding that. In fact, I think you should watch the movie The Tashkent Files, which has been released in 2019, which is actually related to his death. It might give you more insights into what actually happened at Tashkent. It is usually advisable to watch the biopics because then you understand the dynamics of entire India or polity and the external affairs of that time. All right. That moves us to our next phase of Indian polity, which is of greater regional assertion, which started with Lal Bahadur Shastri, all right, and ended with the 1971 war, all right. Now, so during that time, we had again a very, very decisive prime minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. And about Mrs. Indira Gandhi, that not only a very, very decisive prime minister, but she really had to fight her way back to make herself heard. The only, till now, after even after 75 years of independence, the only women prime minister that we have had. A very, very rich legacy of her family. She has also left a very, very rich legacy of the external affairs, the way she managed, and a rich legacy of the green and the white revolution, which were pioneered during her times. In fact, most of you wouldn't know, she actually brought a lot of other international issues to the fore, like climate change, like protection of the wildlife. Why? Because if you take a close look at all the pollution acts that we have in our country, Air Pollution Act, Water Pollution Act, all the other things, those acts actually came during her time in the parliament. And if you talk about Project Tiger, Project Rhino, Project Elephant, these are also, all these projects came to the fore during her time. She paid a lot of attention to these domestic policy matters or international policy matters, even when around the world nobody was actually thinking about them, but she was a pioneer in thinking about them. So let's study more about her. Her time was between 19 November 1917 to October 1984, when she was assassinated after Operation Blue Star, a member of the freedom struggle. In fact, she's one of those famous personalities who has been into politics since childhood. Given her rich legacy, Motilal Nehru was there in the Indian National Congress, followed by Jawaharlal Nehru, and followed by her. And I think many of you must be knowing that even during her childhood days, she formed the Vanar Sena to counter the British Raj. So she has been there since childhood. Politics was ingrained into her blood and bones, which made her a very, very decisive leader. When you talk about Shastri, okay, Raj, so you've watched the movie? Yes, it's a great movie. Uh, he was actually, I think, a mix of both. That's what I told you. Even with that little demeanor of his, he was idealistic like Nehru because obviously he had worked very closely with Nehru, and that person's charm cannot be rubbed off. So, yes, you were idealistic like Nehru, and that was the time when he gave the idea of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. But he was also to certain extent realistic like Mrs. Gandhi or practical like Mrs. Gandhi, because that was the time when we had already seen the Chinese war and we had seen its impact on Nehru and on our Indian polity and domestic issues. So he was a mix of both. However, when Indira Gandhi came in, she was more inclined towards pragmatic issues or greater regional assertion, but she couldn't actually completely leave off her idealistic charm because what was she? She was a granddaughter of Motilal Nehru and she was the daughter of Jawaharlal Nehru. That those two towering personalities whose influence you cannot completely rub off. So even when you want to do something which is very pragmatic, that idealism is always that moral high compass is always there, so you cannot completely shun it off. 1984, no, it wasn't a period of disasters. In fact, I would advise you to go and read those NCRTs. It was not a period of disasters. It was, uh, see, things like these, the anti-Sikh riots, the Operation Blue Star, death of or assassination of our Prime Minister in office. It was a turbulent time indeed. But I'll tell you something. On the world stage, whenever such kind of issues are involved, see, you ruffle a lot of feathers, and these kind of things are bound to happen. India was still very nascent. Now we don't have these kind of things. We have a lot of public hue and cry, but we have seen a very, very peaceful transition towards polity. And Indira Gandhi, as much as a towering figure she was also one of the most controversial figures in the post-independence history of India, because she was very, very decisive. Decisions taken by her were at that point of time very, very straight ahead of her time. So it was very difficult for a lot of people to actually digest, right? But no, it was not a deadly part for us then. All right? Okay. You know who gave her the name Priyadarshini? So it was the name given to her by, again, one of our beloved cultural figures, Rabindranath Tagore. He gave her this name Priyadarshini, or someone who looks at kindness with towards everyone. That is the meaning of Priyadarshini. During one of his interviews, when he was talking about Indira Gandhi, she was declared as the Women of Millennium by BBC in 1999. All right, and very recently in 2020, she was declared as one of the 100 most powerful women of the last century by the Time magazine. Now, education, brilliantly educated across the length and the breadth of the world, from Geneva to France to all the other places in the world you can think of. She's been there, she traveled a lot with her father, and she has been schooled there. But up till matriculation, she did homeschooling. She wasn't sent out because she used to keep a lot ill. She always used to face some of the other health issues, just like her mother, Kamla Nehru. And finally, she graduated from Shanti Niketan, which is a school which was formulated, or the Vishwabharati University, which was formulated by Rabindranath Tagore. In politics, she has been there since childhood. It runs in her blood and bones. President of the Indian National Congress in 1959. All right. She consolidated her position there. But still, she was looked up as a woman leader. So she was thought of as that, we can just tell her what to do. And that's why let's make her the prime minister. So her first term was actually given to her as a gift. But because you are a woman, we'll make you run the ministry as we want to. That's what it is thought that Kamraj thought of her. But unfortunately for everyone, and fortunately for our country, she turned out to be an extremely decisive leader, consolidated her own position. But I feel whatever she did to the Congress actually started the ruin of the party then, because she completely overrode the roots of the Congress in various areas of India. The Congress had a very, very huge popular people machinery at the ground level. That was completely forgotten during her times. She only made the PMO very stronger, and the parliament was weakened during her time. The emergency was during her time. She made very, very dramatic changes to the constitution. Some were good, but some were so dramatic that we are still struggling with those changes, right? And especially the 42nd Amendment. So please go and look at all these political developments that took during her time, because the domestic policy during her time greatly influenced our external foreign policy also. She was the first one who dismissed the first communist government which was elected in Kerala. Just after her election, she dismissed the communist government in Kerala. She only wanted Congress hegemony. She was also the one who gave the famous cry of Garibi Hatao in her second round of elections in 1971 to 77. I will tell you why. Because post 71, she gained a lot of heroic status in the country. Definitely, you led the country to a successful conclusion of a war in severely adverse conditions. And you gave us something which lives in your legacy for so long, a very, very friendly neighbor. So that heroic status she used to give out the war cry for Garibi Hatao, which remained the motto of Congress even till the last time they ruled, till 2014. Even now, it made Congress a completely pro-poor party, and a lot of other parties are also using the same slogan, but in a different manner. But she was the one who actually brought poverty as a problem to the forefront in Indian political discourse. So remember her for that. What were the foreign policy developments during that great regional assertion? So, how did she won the Bangladesh war? It's not some ad hoc decision that you just decide one day कि चलो एक नया country बनाते हैं map पे. It's not just a one-off day that you think, okay, today I'm feeling very, very happy. Today I'm feeling very energetic. Let's go and make a country on the international world map. It doesn't happen that way. We were already knowing about the problems that East Pakistan was facing. Their culture was being ruined by West Pakistan, and they had come to us for helps. And Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was a personal friend of Nehru, and obviously Indira Gandhi knew him through his father's connections only, and they were also very close. So what did we do? US at that point of time was against it. In fact, it was not even treating us well. The PL 480 fiasco, where we got rotten wheat from US, is well known to everyone. So we knew we couldn't ask US for help. It will never support us. We went back to our old friends, the Russians, and we signed the Indo-Soviet Treaty of 1971. Now here, clearly remember, 1964, we signed a defense agreement with the US. What happened to that? You must be wondering. So that defense agreement, actually after Nehru, there was no one to actually look after that. So that finally fell through. And US had become very suspicious of it during Indira Gandhi's time, because the socialist inclination of our polity, of our economy had become very, very clear during Indira Gandhi's time. In fact, she was the one who amended our preamble to actually have that word socialist put into the preamble. So they were very suspicious of us. So who could help us out? Definitely another socialist country. So we went to the Soviet Union, signed a Indo-Soviet Friendship Treaty with them in 1971, well before the Bangladesh War. So when we required their help in the Bangladesh War, they were there to help us in the Indian Ocean when the USS Enterprise had encircled us in the Indian Ocean to provide us from giving aid to the Bangladesh war forces who were fighting there against West Pakistan. And that was one of the major reasons we could actually win the war. And her way of diplomacy, her way of handling the entire issue gave her that heroic status. At that time, after Bangladesh war, Pakistan lost, we signed the Simla Agreement in 1972. People call it an opportunity lost, right? Because that was the time when Pakistan was really down. We could have actually asked for Pakistan occupied Kashmir and they could have complied. But again, as I told you, you cannot separate idealism from their blood. It runs in their blood. Their father runs in their blood. His persona is so overpowering that it is very difficult to shrug off. We still believed in the goodness of Pakistan. We signed the Simla Agreement without taking the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. I think that was the last opportunity we had to maintain peace on our northern fronts, on our Kashmir front. We also gave at this point of time Kachativu to Sri Lanka. If you look at India-Sri Lanka disputes, Kachativu is one of the disputed islands, but we finally gave it to Sri Lanka in 1974. It was her time that a referendum was held in Sikkim and Sikkim decided to join India, so that China did not recognize Sikkim as of now, but the Sikkim issue was solved during her time only. We now finally had Sikkim into India. There was no more Chinese mongering on the borders. So during her times, just like whenever powerful rulers have come up, even in the historical past, when Akbar came up, when Alauddin Khilji came up, when Ashoka came up, we had very, very stronger international boundaries. She was one such leader. She could protect the Indian boundaries with elan. She could protect the Indian boundaries with an iron hand. She was very rightly called the Iron Lady of India. All right. Then she was also the founding mother, not father, of the SARC, Southeast Regional Corporation, right? South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation in 1983, sometime before her death. And very few people know about this, but there was a Siachen conflict that was raging during her times. Pakistan, you must be knowing, I have talked about this in the India-China conflict, that the Siachen Glacier near the Karakoram Pass is actually occupied by India. Now, since it is occupied by India, you have to, at that point of time, Pakistan was doing a lot of nuisance in Siachen. So she was the one who directed the army to take a stand and go and fight all out in the Siachen Glacier. And we actually ended up winning the Siachen conflict in 1984 and consolidated our position on the Siachen Glacier. You know why Siachen Glacier is very important? I would briefly like to talk about it. So it's this part. Here is the Karakoram Pass. This is Pak occupied Kashmir. This area is Siachen Glacier. So it's very close to the Karakoram Pass. Right now, India occupies it. If suppose we lose it to POK, then what happens? We don't have anything here. Here it is POK, here it is Karakoram Pass, from where China can gain entry. And we have nothing in here to protect our boundaries or protect Chinese from coming in through the Karakoram Pass. So it will be a strategic loss to us and we can't afford that, right? With that, her term ended. But Prime Minister Gandhi was never on very good terms with the rest of the Asian countries because of her socialistic leanings, and the rest of the Asian countries really did not like Russia much because Russia has been a colonial power and Russian relations with those nations were not very healthy. All right, especially the Vietnamese. So ASEAN was more or less against Indira Gandhi during her tenure. ASEAN I mean this Association of Southeast Asian Nations. All right, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Now let's go to our fourth Prime Minister, Atal Bihari Ji Vajpayee. He was there during both times, 1991 to 1999, the strategic autonomy period, and 2000 to 2013, India as a balancing power period. All right, we will study all about the political or the foreign developments during his time. All right, now he was a part, sorry, please skip this part. I think I've mentioned it incorrectly here. These are not the parts of his. Okay. He was a part of the JP movement, which happened during Indira Gandhi's time or the emergency time. The JP movement was very, very famous, the Jai Prakash Narayan movement. He served thrice as India's Prime Minister. For the first two times for very, very short duration, 13 days and 13 months. And for the second time for a full term of 5 years between 1999 to 2004. That was the time when we had just done the Pokhran test under him, which gave him again a heroic status both in the country and outside. And that's why they were able to continue for a second term. The NDA came into power between 1999 to 2004. His time is also marred by the Babri Masjid demolition, right? Something that has festered as an India's wound. It is said that he could have handled it more responsibly, right? The kind of speeches he gave during that time were not very deserving of a prime minister or something that he should have done. He should have prevented it because it led to so many riots, it led to so many loss of lives, and it became a festering wound of India, which we are still trying to solve. We have reached some sort of engagement here, but still not completely. It has left a lot of blood, so it shouldn't have been done. His timing was between 25 December to 1924 to he died recently in 2018 because of health issues. All right. Now, he was a very well-known orator and poet. Everybody knows that. In fact, one of his famous lines in the parliament is, निर्णय नहीं लेना भी एक तरीके का निर्णय है. That means not taking a decision is also a form of decision. And his speeches in parliament are a delight to watch, a delight to listen to. So whenever you get a chance, please do listen to him. Excellent orator, just like Prime Minister Modi. In fact, I think better than Prime Minister Modi. His words, his demeanor, his way of speaking can win anybody's hearts. He did his education from Gwalior and Kanpur, and he joined politics very, very early on. He was an external minister in Morarji Desai's government. That is way back in 1966, 1967, right? And he has spent more than 5 decades in politics. That's a huge, huge time, and a very astute statesman, very, very astute statesman. He was the one who, for the first time, gave that gave the first speech in Hindi in the UN. He actually made people comfortable with the Hindi in the UN, and Prime Minister Modi has followed his suit. All right. I would also like to tell you something. Okay, here before I tell you that fact, I want to complete the foreign policy developments during his time. The most important one being the nuclear test of 1998. Right? We knew sanctions could be imposed on us, yet we went ahead with it. I want you to watch the John Abraham movie Pokhran. It will give you a lot of insights on how the entire thing happened. All right. Now, in fact, India, even before taking the nuclear test, was kind of very well prepared that something like this might happen. Then came the part of Lahore Declaration. Okay. And in Lahore Declaration, this part, the Lahore Declaration part, when did it happen? Lahore Declaration part happened in February when we started running a bus between Lahore and India, and we ran a peace bus. We said that India will look forward, will has raised a peace flag towards Pakistan. But unfortunately, in May 1999, we were attacked by the Pakistanis trying to occupy our regions in Kargil, all right, the Ladakhi area. And we had to go for a full blown war, the Kargil war, the fourth war that was fought between Pakistan and India. We ended up winning it, but we completely unanticipated it, all right. Then, as you can see, the transition from nuclear test in 1998 to Bill Clinton visit in 2000. I told you, we knew what sanctions might be there on us, but we were ready for those sanctions. And not just that, at the same time, when we were doing that Pokhran test, we were also growing our economy at the rate of 8 to 9%. Between 1998 to 2008, our economy was growing at a rate of 9 to 10%. So America actually couldn't resist itself. And Bill Clinton, it was the first presidential visit of the US president, or POTUS, president of the US, after 22 years to India. All right. So that visit was marked with a lot of fanfare. In fact, still, the Naila village comes to my mind when I think about the Bill Clinton visit. I was very, very young then, very, very small, but I still remember that visit very, very clearly when Bill Clinton had come down with Chelsea Clinton and Hillary Clinton to visit India in 2000. We fought the war with Pakistan, but since Narasimha Rao, our policy has been of peaceful or peaceful engagement with our hostile neighbors, or constructive engagement over aggression with our neighbors with whom we have hostilities. In fact, it is a part of the Gujral Doctrine. Gujral Doctrine came in 1996 when Gujral said that Southeast Asian nations will actually respect each other and we will constructively engage with each other. So prime ministers since then have followed it. And in 2001, we were actually following the Gujral Doctrine. We decided to again peacefully engage with our neighbor. And Agra summit is very, very famous. I still remember it. It was a 2-day summit. Lot of bonhomie was created with President Musharraf. We also recognized his rule in Pakistan. He wasn't recognized elsewhere because it was a dictatorship. But we still gave it a go ahead. We said we are not into changing regimes. We accepted the way you are, but please maintain peace at the borders. But it finally failed when Musharraf declined to let go of the Kashmir issue. And just when it had ended, we thought there was some bonhomie. We had a parliament attacked in December 2001. Up till now, the only attack on parliament, and it happened during the time of Vajpayee, post which the security at parliament has been raised to another level. But that was an attack on our sovereignty, a very, very big black mark on Indian polity. And then the Gujarat riots happened. Please excuse me for the spelling mistake. It should be Gujarat. The Gujarat riots happened during 2002. Why have I put it in the foreign policy developments? You know what? Even when we have moved beyond, now it's more than 20 years since Gujarat riots have happened, it has left a blot on the Indian culture, Indian polity, and India's standing in the foreign domain. In fact, even when Modi was sweared in into 2014, he had a lot of difficulty in getting the US visa. And right now, also, a couple of days ago, it was in news that the religious fanaticism in India has been rising, and it's not a very good sign for freedom of people, for or delineating India's democratic principles. It's something that goes against our democratic grain. And Gujarat riots were as much as a blot on our domestic polity as on our external polity, because we were looked upon as a nation who actually cannot provide security to its own people, which says that it's a secure or secular country and still can't, you know, carry forward that value with it. It says it's a secular country and still such kind of things are happening there. So it was not taken very well with the world community, and that's why I've mentioned it here. Finally, our Prime Minister Vajpayee ji also went to Tibet. Okay, and when he went to Tibet, or he went to China, he recognized Tibet as a part of China in 2003. So Sikkim, which was inducted into the Indian polity in 1975, was actually finally recognized as a part of India by China in 2004 only. Just after we recognized Tibet as a part of China in 2003, in 2004, China as a reciprocal measure recognized Sikkim as a part of India. With that, sorry, apologies for this. Yes. With that, finally, in 2000, we signed a India-Russia strategic partnership. We again took our inclination back to Russia, all right, because Bill Clinton had come, but there were no promises on the sanctions that were there on us. There was no promise of a future. We decided to go back to our trusted partner, who became a trusted partner during Nehru's time, because Nehru had a huge influence on Russia, and Russia had a huge influence on Nehru. And we again elevated the status of our India-Soviet Friendship Treaty to India-Russia Strategic Partnership back in 2000. Now it's almost 20 years of that. All right. In fact, recently when our foreign minister visited Russia, they celebrated the 20 years of strategic partnership with Russia. Then came our 12th Prime Minister, I.K. Gujral. He was active between 4th December 1919 and he recently died in 2012. Now, he came into power in 1996, all right? Now, after that, so his education was completed in DAV College in Lahore. He was born and brought up in Lahore. Politics, he was imprisoned during the Quit India movement, and he was one of our PMs who was selected from the Rajya Sabha, elected from the Rajya Sabha, just like Manmohan Singh and just like Indira Gandhi. So before him, Indira Gandhi was from Rajya Sabha, and after him, Manmohan Singh was Rajya Sabha. Usually, PMs, if they are from Lok Sabha, they have better committee with the public, because they are actually domestic leaders, they are public leaders if you're selected from the Lok Sabha. So that gives you more authenticity. However, we can say in Indira's case, she was as well as loved by the people as much as she was hated by the people. So both the things were there. The foreign policy developments. The most important was the Gujral Doctrine. So we will just do it in a little bit more detail. It was given in 1996. He said, we will give and keep giving to all our neighbors, Southeast Asian countries neighbors or South Asian neighbors. SA here stands for South Asia. All right. He said, we will keep giving to our neighbors. We will not expect anything else in return, because we are a big brother. We are a majority, or we are a prominent power in the subcontinent. The second thing he said, that no South Asian country will allow its territory for use against another in the region, right? But this actually met a huge setback during the Mumbai attacks. All right. The Pakistanis actually attacked us. Then the third point he gave was non-interference in internal affairs of the country, something similar to Panchsheel. So these 5 principles are not very different from Panchsheel, but just given at a different time. And I will also tell you some other repercussions that happened because of the Gujarat Doctrine. The third point he said was South Asian countries have to respect each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty, just like the Panchsheel principles. The fifth principle that he gave was dispute settlement through peaceful bilateral negotiations, which, as I told you, when Atal Bihari went for that Agra summit, this was the fifth point that we were keeping in mind. Now, what actually happened as a result of Gujarat Doctrine? It is said that he is one of those prime ministers who is responsible for failure of Indian intelligence because he closed the roving we had in Pakistan during his times. He really weakened the Indian intelligence infrastructure during his times because obviously he gave the Gujarat Doctrine. He said we'll maintain peace and we will believe in each other and nothing will happen. So back from Nehru's, when we had actually realized that we have to be very real about our security interest, back from that second phase, he again took us to the first phase, being very, very optimistic about it, which resulted when the Mumbai attacks finally happened in 2008. People actually disparaged him in public like anything. He was publicly bashed because the forces said that you completely destroyed our intelligence infrastructure in Pakistan. It was shut during his time, and it will take a lot of time to grow that kind of infrastructure back. However, there was one more thing. Why did he give this Gujarat Doctrine, and why did he give it during the period of 1996? I will tell you why. So, the reason was he said we already have very, very hostile neighbors in the north, that is China, and in the west, that is Pakistan. So, by this doctrine, what we are trying to do is what we can do is, because these both are very, very large powers, we cannot fight at both fronts. So, what should we do? We should consolidate our power with the rest of the countries that are our smaller neighbors: Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, the island countries, so that we should stay in a group so that we can fight this external hostilities that are there towards us. So that was the whole idea of the Gujarat Doctrine. Let's move on to our next phase. Manmohan Singh was during both the phases 1991 and 1999 because he was the pioneer of the LPG reforms as a finance minister. And finally, his most important tenure came during the time of 2000 and 2013, all right, till the time the UPA was in power. Now, UPA was in power between 2004 to 2009 and 2009 to 2013. He is still alive. His time period starts from 26 September. He was the 13th Prime Minister of our country. He is both a Cambridge and an Oxford graduate. There is a name by his, there is a chair in his name in both Cambridge and Oxford, and people take a lot of pride. The Oxford and the Cambridge take a lot of pride in being associated with him. Extremely well known, extremely well read economist. Even President Obama sometimes calls him to talk about the economic policies. Even our present Prime Minister has called him sometimes to talk about the economic policies or the economic dimensions India should consider. He was the finance minister during the LPG time, and again, another Prime Minister who was elected from the Rajya Sabha. He could never win a Lok Sabha election. What were the foreign policy developments during his 10 years of time when he was in power? He established the National Investigation Agency right after the Mumbai attacks. Why have I put it here? Because again, we have time and again recognized defense as a very, very important part of our external foreign policy. All right. And that's why this point becomes important. He followed the pragmatic foreign policy of his predecessors. That means peace process with Pakistan. Pakistan attacked us a lot of time even during Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. But we never said we would go ahead and do surgical strikes. We always said we want peace at the border, we will talk. So talks, or the peace process with Pakistan kept on going. It's only during 2014 we changed our stance completely. We said no talks without you curbing that terrorism. If you do terrorism, we will just keep giving you a fitting reply. We will not enter into any talks, or we will not let you sit with us on the same table if you continue with this kind of errant behavior. Finally, during his time, we became largest regional donor to Afghanistan. We invested a lot in Afghanistan. In fact, India-Afghanistan friendship really took off during his time because that was the time when America was still in Afghanistan. India was asked to play a bigger role. Why? Link it to India acting as a balancing power in 2000 and 2013. US was really very supportive of us, so that our intervention in Afghanistan was not mined by the US, and we could really go there, invest in a lot of projects there, or the Jaranj highway, which is already there, in building of schools and building of other infrastructure. So we invested a big way in Afghanistan because we wanted there to be peace in Afghanistan. Otherwise, Afghanistan will be used as a breeding ground for terrorism by Pakistanis, which will advertently impact India. The highlight of his tenure has been the nuclear deal of 2005, which I already told you. Led us to our entry in various other export technology control regimes, the MTCR, the Wassenaar Arrangement, and the Australia Group. He also improved the relations with the African Union. So we gave equal importance to Africa. In fact, IBSA, or India, Brazil, South Africa access, actually got stronger during his time. The BRICS summit actually got stronger during his time. The BRICS bank was set up during his time. We also improved our relations with the European Union during his time. And the weapons import actually started increasing from Russia during his time. In fact, so much so that the weapon import from Russia started from Israel actually rivaling our weapon import from Russia. So we actually diversified our weapon imports so that we do not have to rely on a single partner for our defense needs. The dispute settlement, so he actually believed in very much in settling all the disputes to peaceful bilateral negotiations, and the Mumbai attacks obviously were a part of his regime. Next comes finally the end of my presentation today. We will talk about Modi. This slide does not do justice to him because we have engaged a hell lot more on our foreign policy front during his 5 or 7 tenures that has happened so far since 2014 to 2020. That's almost 6 or 7 years of tenure. I have put down here some very major foreign policy initiatives taken during his time, and I'll be continuing with it when we'll be talking about the neighborhood relations, when we'll be taking one country at a time, when we'll be talking about bilateral relationships. So I'll be talking about all the things that he has done in greater detail then. As of now, we'll focus on some of the prominent initiatives taken during his time. As of now, folks, if you have any doubts, any concerns, anything that you would like to ask, please put it in the groups. Okay, so as of now, there is no query. If you have any query, please put it here. Yes, everybody, good morning. I'm so sorry. I'm not actually able to look at the live chat again and again because otherwise the teaching gets influenced. So if you have any doubts, please post it in the group. Sorry, in the live chat. I will definitely answer it. And I hear all of you out. So yes, very good morning to all of you and thanks for being here for this session. Now, his time, he was born on 17 September 1950 till present. He is the 14th Prime Minister of the Republic of India. He actually mostly had open schooling and got his BA from there. And finally, he did his MBA from Gujarat University. In fact, his degrees were a lot more in news. In fact, even Smriti Irani's were in degrees was in news when they started filing papers for their nomination papers for their elections. Now, how to get the Amit, as of now, I'm not sharing the PPTs, but I will surely share the PPTs once I'm done with the sessions on the Telegram group. You're already there, right? So I will share those PPTs there. But as of now, I want you guys to actually listen to me carefully here and ask me your doubts here only. It's a live session, so I'm better able to answer your doubts. I want you to learn everything because we will cover each of these pointers that we have written here in greater detail as we proceed through the lectures. So you will not actually have to remember anything. Just watch the videos, relax, understand how things are going around. All right? And I will be sharing the PPTs later in the Telegram group itself. But I just want to complete all the sessions. I don't want to give you PPTs right now so that you don't get confused. I want to complete the sessions first and then I'll share the entire PPT case for the entire Asia edition together with everybody. I will put it on the group. You can join the group and then you can take the PPT from there. All right? Okay. For more than a decade, his politics involved for more than a decade, he's been a Gujarat's he's been Gujarat's chief minister. In fact, when did he get into politics? So let me tell you a little bit brief about him, because you know a prime minister's ideologies come from the life he has lived in his past. So he has been a Bal Swayam Sevak, or even as a child, he was a member of the RSS. And instead of completing education, he actually became a full-time pracharak. And when he actually got imprisoned, that was a time when he rose to his prominence in RSS and was finally made the Gujarat CM back in 2000. Now, his foreign policy developments, I'm not repeating the 2004 Gujarat riots here because we've already discussed that. So first thing, SARC leaders were called in the swearing in ceremony. So neighborhood first policy was actually put into place by Modi. First visit to Nepal. He went to Nepal as his first visit and not to some swanky foreign country, to actually reinforce his faith in the neighborhood or neighbors come first policy. He believes in multi engagement. Whenever he'll go for some external engagement, all right, he will never talk just about the border disputes. He will talk about everything under the sun. So that has been our focus since 2014 onwards, that we'll have a very, very energetic engagement. What does that mean? We will link our strategic policy, our economic diplomacy, our cultural diplomacy to our regional ties, security, and our foreign policy. So everything will come together under one roof. And we have been consistently following it in the Modi regime. The India-Bangladesh enclaves exchange. So the groundwork for it was actually done during Manmohan Singh's time. And in 2015, we actually had a very peaceful enclave exchange with Bangladesh. So it was a peaceful settlement of the boundary dispute with Bangladesh in 2015. From Look East policy to now we have Act East policy, which has gained traction during the Modi period. We also, the road to Myanmar through Manipur. See, we were trying to build a road to Myanmar through Manipur. That has been going on for a while now, but it was given further reinforcement during this time because we are energetically engaging with all the countries. As I told you, no more talks. All right. If you hurt us, we will give a fitting reply. And thus the surgical strikes post the Uri or the Pulwama attack. Okay. In fact, yes. That's why the surgical strikes post the Uri and the Pulwama attack. It's energetic engagement, yes. But if you intervene in our country, if you anyway disrupt our security interest, we will not leave you. We will fight tooth and nail and put you in your place. And that's what we did with the surgical strikes. In fact, people are eagerly awaiting to see our reaction on what China has done in the Galwan River Valley area. Everybody is highly disappointed and our heart goes out to our soldiers. Howdy Modi. So Modi just not, he's known for his fanfare. So he's not just known for his articulate rallies in India, but he actually went to America and had a Howdy Modi program there. He also invited Trump to come here, and there was a similar program for Trump in India where Trump could actually interact with the people of India. And Modi, when he went there, he was able to interact with all our diaspora. Trump actually facilitated that. So it was a very great, proud moment for India. In fact, it was a great, proud moment for Modi as well. Somebody who was denied visa all the time because of the Gujarat riots to USA was actually called there, invited there to be there for the Howdy Modi program. In fact, Trump and Modi together, they took a Google Hangout session to answer queries on both India and American engagements. The Doklam standoff and the river Galwan Valley, not the standoff now, the face-off also happened during his time. We have tried a different lot of ways to actually engage with China during his time. And let's see where it goes. It's still something that we need to anticipate and decipher. We actually also went closer to Israel. So it was only in 1991, after our economic fiasco, that we gave Israel a full bilateral standing in our relationships. But now we have moved all the more closer to Israel. Earlier during the Gandhian times or the Nehru Gandhi family times, we were closer to the Palestinian cause. Now, recognizing our national security interest, we are getting closer to Israel because it provides us with weapons, it provides us with technology. Also, during his time, the motor vehicle agreement was signed between four SAARC countries, Nepal, Bhutan, India, Myanmar, so that the vehicles can pass from one country to another easily. In fact, rallies have been actually held on these roads, the roads which connect all these four countries. And finally, yes, a very, very huge engagement with diaspora, which is also one of our foreign policy principles. Why? For two reasons. For securing our own interest, because if our people are there, they can talk about our interest, and for securing the interest of the diaspora there. If they are treated better there, they will be able to send in back more money. They will be able to influence India in a positive manner. And that's why Modi has been one of those pioneers who has actually learned about the importance of diaspora and have tried to engage them with in a very, very concrete manner, in a very strong manner, because he feels that our diaspora will open further floodgates of more investment into India and more floodgates for exporting our human resources to other countries, so that we can actually spread around our knowledge and gain more traction for ourselves in the international dominion. With that, I would just summarize Indian foreign policy in a nutshell. What does that talk about? Yes, recently he was criticized for being in the political rally for Trump. Yes, he was. That was after all what Trump says. And in fact, who wouldn't be criticized for being with Trump? But what can you do? He's POTUS, he's president of the US. So we're not just dealing with one person, we are dealing with a country. And even when somebody is criticized, you can't break off your relations with the country, because we are more ingrained with the US than we are with the rest of our neighbors. We have a huge, huge trade relationship. So we really can't let it go. And for other ones who have asked for my Telegram link, I would say I will just conclude with my Telegram link and channel so you can be a part of that. But let's finish with the foreign policy in a nutshell first. So 1920 onwards, Jawaharlal Nehru, who had a long-standing interest in world affairs among independence leaders, formulated the Congress stance on international issues. So 1920 onwards, it was Jawaharlal Nehru. Early 90s till 1947, it was the British Empire which monopolized our external and defense relations, and that's why it took India into both the world wars, even without us wanting it. After 1947, obviously, Nehru articulated India's approach to the world. During the core world, India adopted a foreign policy of not aligning itself with any major power bloc or the non-aligned movement of 1955. All right, remember these dates or these years. On the intensely debated Kashmir issue with Pakistan, India lost credibility by rejecting United Nations calls for plebiscite. It did not lose credibility, but what happened was we have kind of opened a Pandora's box. Now, every one of us keeps telling us that you took it to the UN, now you resolve it at the UN. You can't have it as a bilateral relationship. But now, India being in so much power, economic and social, nobody can really press a thumb on us and pressurize into it. So right now, it's a gone issue. We really need not worry about it. And during the present times, we actually want to strengthen our diplomatic and economic ties with the United States, the European Union, Japan, Israel, Mexico, Brazil. Our focus is still a lot on West. We are also trying to actively engage in the East. And we have also forged closer ties. In fact, now, compared to Mrs. Gandhi's times, we are having a very, very close association with the ASEAN, or Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the African Union, and the Arab League. The foreign policy under the current PM, the 14th PM that we were talking about, Prime Minister Modi that we were talking about, indicated a total shift towards focusing on the Asian region, because he thinks it's an Asian century, and not just him. The world thinks it's an Asian century because China has already risen to so much power, and India is the next upcoming power, with minus the issues that USA or EU are facing in their respective countries and on an international level. We are free from those kind of concerns. And more broadly, he has actually focused on economic diplomacy than anything else. So economic diplomacy has become the rule roost of the day. All right. With that, we come to an end of our session today. I hope it was very enjoyable for you. All right. And if you have any queries, please post it in the live chat. I will just check it before we leave for today's session. And I will also share with you my Telegram group link. This is my group link where you can directly interact with me. All right. I also post all my upcoming sessions here so that it is easier for you to follow me. In fact, I would suggest that if you don't want to join the group, if you're not interested in interacting with me, I'm fine with it. But join the Telegram channel so that you're aware when the next session in the series comes up. It will be in a day or two at the same time, 10 a.m. in the morning. I take a little bit of time for these sessions because whenever I have to take a session, I take at least a day off to actually think about what I'm supposed to teach you beforehand so that whatever information we share here is credible, is linked in the best manner possible, so that once you are done with the entire series, you will have complete confidence over India's foreign relations. At least this part of the entire UPSC syllabus will be so clear to you that you will have to look nowhere else. We will be completely covering it here in these sessions, small sessions. With that, this is my Telegram link, Telegram channel link. So you can follow me here. You will be hearing all about the upcoming videos on this session and more. Further, I'm also starting a mini mock series on Unacademy. It's in the form of special classes, so they are free for all. Please come to the prelims test series. It's a mini mock series of 35 to 40 questions each day. We will be covering the entire prelims syllabus in the next coming 7 to 10 days with myriad questions from each of the different 7 topics of prelims. Starting today, it's starting at 8:30 p.m. today on the Unacademy platform. For the link of that session today, it will also be posted on the Telegram channel link and Telegram group link. The classes are free. So come and take a taste of our platform, how the platforms look. And in the meanwhile, also prepare best for your exams and let Unacademy be the partner in your preparation for the exams. All the best for your prelims, mains, and I hope to see you as future civil servants someday. With that, obviously you like the video. That's why you've been watching me for almost an hour right now. So please subscribe to our channel. Let's crack UPSC CSE in English. Share my videos, like my videos, so more people like you can actually benefit from all the hard work that I've put in to create each of these sessions. Hit the bell icon notification for more videos from our side. And obviously, if whenever you choose to go through my science and technology course on Unacademy, it's a comprehensive course. Some of the students from my course are actually there attending the session right now. You can ask them how the course was, or you can see the ratings of my course on the course page on Unacademy and choose to attend it. And use my code SBUS to get an instant 10% off on your preparation. So that means less than 40,000 for an year and less than 30,000 for an year if you take a 2-year program, and if you take a 1-year program, it's less than 40,000. If you use my code SBUS, you get an instant 10% discount. With that, I'll close for today's session. Okay, there is one more question here which says, Raj, we will not be talking about those coalition governments because then we'll have to talk about 13 prime ministers. What I did about here was, I talked about that era between 1991 to 1999. That was the era of coalition governments that was coming in. So a lot was happening. I've covered those developments. But when I wanted to show you it through the developments that have occurred through the PMs, the majority developments have happened during the timelines when these 7 PMs were in power. So none of your developments have been actually disregarded. At most, you can add Narasimha Rao, during which time we had the LPG reforms in 1991, which I've already covered under Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Then if we talk about the 1998 nuclear test, which was again a hallmark of our foreign diplomacy, I have already covered it under Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So the coalition government part, I have covered it because all these prime ministers were somewhere a part of that coalition government. They were still active in the polity. So whatever was important for us, I've already covered that. The rest I've left out because not everything is important for us. What's important for us, what's important for you to know, I have covered in this session, so you can rest assured about that. I have studied that in detail and this is what I found out important. I hope that answers your question. So thank you and let's call it a day. Take care and prepare well, and obviously keep yourselves safe because that's the most important thing.